Hello guys, and welcome to this Volks Wizard video. Now, some of you may know that at the end of 2018 I was lucky enough to drive a car I'd been longing to drive for many years, and that was the Audi S1. If you've seen my video where I compare it to the Up GTI, you'll know that I absolutely adored its combination of compact hot hatch friskiness, but with twice the power of the Up GTI and twice the driven wheels, which meant you could use all of the power pretty much all of the time. Well, roughly about the time I drove that car, the new Audi A1 was being launched in the UK, and I thought there's bound to be a new S1 really soon because the old one actually sold quite well. Well, it just so happens that there isn't going to be one, which made me wonder, how am I going to get my next compact all-wheel drive hot hatch thrills? And the answer is actually to look into the past, because before the Audi S1 was launched in 2014, there was the Audi A1 Quattro. Now, this is a very limited edition car, just 333 made. 19 have come to the UK, and I'm lucky enough to have the keys to this example you see right behind me, which has been loaned to me by Audi UK for the day, so I can show you exactly how special this little car is. So without any further ado, let's have a good look around the Audi A1 Quattro. Okay then, so this is the Audi A1 Quattro, one of 333, and this is from the Audi UK's heritage fleet. Now, they all came in glacier white. The wheels, which we'll come to later, were also glacier white. It's a metallic colour you might just make out there. And there are so many differences over the S1, I might as well tell you what's the same, but let's have a walk around it and I'll point things out as we go along. So the front bumper is completely different. The sculpting of the vents down there is different. The splitter's different. I think even the grille is probably different. The headlights look very different. There are some on the S1 with this red bit here, but it's different to that, so these are unique as well. From the side we've got a unique sill cover with that gloss black section underneath. Now let's have a look at those wheels before I forget. So these are glacier whites, and they're very rally inspired. They're probably the coolest wheels you'll ever get on an Audi. They're 18 inch, they come with 225, 35, 18 tyres. I think they're Bridgestone Potenzas from new. These are actually the original tyres manufactured in 15th week of 11. They've done quite well because the car's got about 7,000 miles on the clock. Now, originally it would have been 40,000 quid, but with that mileage this car today is worth about 47. So I remember when they came out I thought 40 grand was ridiculous for an A1, however much power and however rare it was, but people who bought them have made a nice bit of profit on them. They've all got a black roof. They've all got this humongous spoiler, which is probably twice as big as the biggest one on the S1 that comes with the Quattro pack. There's no Quattro lettering on the side apart from this, which is 3D, feels really nice. You get these wheel arch extensions, which I think you get on the S1, but they're not as long as that, and I think they're just black plastic. On the back we've got this black section of the tailgate, which some people do as a modification to their S1s, and it makes a real difference. It looks really good with the black rear window and the black diffuser. Now, the exhaust tips, as you can see, are nothing like the ones on the S1. That's got two exhausts each side like on the Golf R. This has got just one big one per side, and it's slash cut, which is in line with the diffuser, which looks very rally car style, and it's a shame they didn't use that on the S1 itself. In fact, it probably looked really good on the Golf GTI, because on the Golf GTI they're not slash cut, so they stick out and look a bit clumsy. We've got a Quattro badge on the back and an A1 badge, because it is an A1, it's not an S1. We've got the usual tiny boot because it's a Quattro, or that four-wheel drive hidden underneath it. Let's move on to the inside. I know it's left-hand drive, this is the wrong side, but it's just easier for me with the light to show you this way round. Okay, so we've got these super sport seats, which are very similar actually to the ones on the S1 if you pay extra for them, but they haven't got S1 there. They've got gloss black backs and Quattro lettering on the back there. Lovely A1 Quattro sill covers. Now, all these cars were very high spec, so some of that 40 grand was actually mopped up by the options list, so they had about 11 grand worth of options over the standard car. So just briefly, Bose sound system, the seats, centre armrest, which you could probably do without, navigation, cruise control, and a few other bits and pieces. The gear knob is alloy, like the one on the R8, but it was an option on the S1, that wasn't standard. We've got gloss black down here, which lifts the quality of the cabin. Generally, the plastics look really good. I'm not sure if this is special for the A1 Quattro, or whether all A1s were this good, but yeah, there's nothing particularly horribly scratchy on this car. Got some nice red stitching here, and there's a bit more here on the gear gaiter and on the seats. and on the steering wheel, where there's also a black badge that says one of 333. This car's got keyless go, so you just put your key in the car and press that button to fire it up. I can show you that now. It's weirdly got a red rev counter and a black speedometer, which is actually pretty cool. So yep, there's the cruise control. It's got auto headlights. Now the pedal position seems slightly peculiar to me. I've not driven this car yet, I will comment on it shortly, but the clutch pedal there seems to be in the middle of the steering wheel, and the brake pedal's over here, and the throttle's, blimey, it's almost in the centre console, so we'll see how that translates when we get onto the road. Space in the back is pretty typical of all A1s, there isn't an awful lot of it. So yeah, it's just a two-seater at the back, so it's a four-seater car in total. Okay guys, I'll just give you a brief tour under the bonnet, and there is a fair bit to see actually, because this engine is completely different to that in the S1. It's a completely different generation of engine, it's much older. This is an EA113, which is the engine that started life in the Mark V Golf GTI. The one in the S1 is called the EA888. This is also about 10% more powerful than the one in the S1. It's 252 brake horsepower as opposed to 227. They're a bit more heavier on fuel, but they're a lot more reliable and they take tuning really well. This particular engine code, CDL, is pretty famous because it's what Volkswagen used for the Scirocco Cup racing cars. They also used it for the Edition 35 racing cars in Poland. And I'm also hoping the clutch will prove more reliable in this car than that of the S1, because when this engine's fitted to those other cars, it's always reliable, the clutch, while on the S1s it's quite weak. Anyway, enough chat, let's do what I've been looking forward to doing for about 7 years since this car was first announced, and go and drive the Audi A1 Quattro. Okay guys, here we are behind the wheel of the Audi A1 Quattro, and first impressions are that it is pretty similar to the S1. Obviously we're in the left side of the cabin, which because they're only left-hand drive, and I can tell you now, rather oddly, although it doesn't feel that odd when you're driving, that the clutch pedal is in the middle of the steering wheel, right between the central spoke, which is a bit weird, and then my right foot with the throttle is over sort of here towards the centre console. Very unusual. I'm not sure if left-hand drive A1s are this offset, but it feels like driving a 1970s Ferrari where everything's a bit weird. But to be fair, you do get used to it, and it does actually feel kind of natural. Oddly enough, driving left-hand drive isn't that bad in the UK unless you want to overtake, because you actually can see where the edge of the road is. So I know it's not good to hit people on that side, but at least you're fully aware of the edge of the road here and you can use the road quite well. Now what's a bit different about this engine is that it lacks the real sharpness of the aggression of the EA888 in the S1. It's got that slightly laggy old school feel to it that you get with the EA113. It's not bad for it, it does give it more character. It also makes a kind of strangely evocative turbo hiss when you're on the gas, which I haven't heard since the 225 Mark 1 TT, because they seem to have engineered any sort of old school character out of turbo engines recently, but in this car it sounds absolutely perfect because of what it is. For some reason I keep on thinking about Lancia Delta Integrales, left-hand drive, sort of rally related and full of character. It does feel extremely special, and that's not just coming from sitting on this side of the cabin. We've also got that dark red rev counter on the left-hand side, which is really weird. You know, I've never been in a car that's got a different clock on the left-hand side to the right. The seats are really supportive, but without being excessively constricting, and they're pretty much the production ones out of the S1 if you pay extra for super sport seats. The brakes are nice and progressive. The ride, a tiny bit firmer. I think if you get the dampers in the S1 and you drive in dynamic road mode, it feels a bit like that. We're on 18-inch wheels, which I think most of the S1s will be. It doesn't feel noticeably quicker than S1, even though it's got 10% more power. I think it actually weighs quite a bit more as well, so that mops up some of that performance. We've got 6-speed gearbox with quite a long throw. We've got an alloy knob, which when I started off today at 3 degrees was actually really cold, but that's pretty cool. Again, it gives the car a lot of character. Yeah, it's fun. I mean, the S1 is fun as well. I don't think there's an awful lot in it, and you could see the left-hand drive as a disadvantage as well. So we'll just go through this 30 then and take it a little bit easier and just take in what we've got around us. So the centre cut, the dashboard seems to be focused towards the driver a lot more than I remember in the right-hand drive S1 I drove. It's a bit like an old E30 BMW. It's very tilted over here. But everything else is surprisingly familiar. We've got a massive dead pedal on the left-hand side of the car. UK cars don't tend to get nice alloy dead pedals. If they get them at all, they're usually bits of plastic, but on this car it's a really nice sort of organ pedal in aluminium. Yeah, picks up well, and as I said in the bit about the engine bay, this car will tune, and I think it will suit tuning very well, because you've got the traction, you've got a reliable engine. In theory, you've got a tougher clutch. So yeah, it actually didn't feel really laggy then, but that was probably about 3,000 revs. I think the S1 pulls harder lower down the rev range. Being a short wheelbase hot hatch, you probably need to treat it with respect. If it does start to go out of shape, it's going to go out of shape pretty quickly. And on these bumpy roads, I wouldn't say it feels particularly wayward. No, maybe I would. No, it feels okay. You feel the speed that you're doing, so we're relatively legal right now, and it does feel like we're doing that speed. In something like a Golf R, you'd be gliding over this road at 3 figures and thinking you're doing 60. So it's got a slightly more old school, slightly less clinical feel to it than the S1 has got. The S1's a mass market car, and it's been finely honed for the mass market that it needs to buy it. And this car is an oddity, really. It's incredible that Audi actually built it, but I think they built it to draw attention to the A1, which had only recently been released, and it drew a lot of attention because it's such a bizarre car. You know, they actually engineered this car to run quattro, when until that point there was no quattro. An owner told me that it's a bit like having a TTS squeezed into the platform of an A1, which, if you think about that, that's pretty incredible. Yeah, there's something distinctly old-fashioned in a good way about the way this car performs. And I like it a lot. Would I pay sort of 2 to 3 times the price for this car today than I would for a second-hand S1? I'm not sure I would, really, unless I wanted to add it to my collection, and then I actually think it would be well worthy. I didn't think it was particularly collectible when it came out, but now, looking back, well, especially with the rallycross cars that are competing around the world, that look a lot more like this, it has a much more of a motorsport link now than it did when it came out, ironically. And I think, yeah, it would be a really cool car to have in your collection, and it would be great fun to drive. So I hope you've enjoyed this Volks Wizard video. If you have, give it a thumbs up, please share, please comment, please subscribe, and I'll see you for the next one very soon.